Hello, people that are arriving. We're gonna give it like 1 or 2 more minutes.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And then we'll start. All right. 1 more minute. Hi, Mary. Hi, Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon, what's good?
Good, everybody. It's a party. All right. I will call that good just for the sake of time, and we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Athletes of Tomorrow, bringing youth Quidditch to schools. Today, we will be talking about just some ways that we can get youth Quidditch into schools. And we're going to talk about some resources, some rule change or some rule adaptations, things like that. So to get started, we'll do introductions and we'll go by the names on the slide listed. So I'll go first. My name is Lexi Vidal. I am formerly a president of Illinois State Quidditch. I formerly managed KC Stampede for MLQ, and I'm currently the youth team lead for USQ. I started Quidditch in 2015, and here I am. So Scott, go ahead.
Thank you, Lexi. I also joined Lexi as part of the USQ's youth department. I serve as the Midwest Youth Regional Coordinator. I play in Chicago. I've been playing since 2016, and I try to do a lot of youth workshops, try to introduce kids to the sports and parents, and where are those two people spending a lot of their time in the school system. So let's inspire the youth of tomorrow today.
My name is Derek. I live in Canada. I'm a registered teacher in Ontario. I just graduated and I'm hoping to start Quidditch in high schools. Unfortunately, when I graduated, COVID kind of started, so I haven't really been able to get a chance to do that yet. But I've already done that in a couple of my placements and already gotten a really good feedback from students.
Hey everyone, Chris Galvis here, also from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, also a registered teacher in the area. Been involved in Quidditch since 2013, played on a bunch of teams. Just starting to try to get schools interested. Been doing it for about 3 years now, and we were like really close to getting some major developments like tournaments and stuff, and then, well, COVID happened. But the excitement's still there, I can assure you, and we're here to talk about all that excitement today. So really excited to be talking here.
Hi everyone, I'm Amy. I've been playing Quidditch for about 9 years now. I started the team at the Illinois Institute of Technology, and I'm currently on Chicago United Quidditch Club as their fundraising chair and treasurer. I volunteered with USQ in the youth department, helping make documentation, and I have a lot of experience with running youth events. I've done youth events with Scott in the community, and I've run Quidditch and done the curriculum through summer camps through a company I worked for. So I'm very excited to share my 2 cents with this topic with you.
And my name is Jonathan Bonner, and I'm a teacher at Fruita Middle School in Colorado. And I've been teaching high school, college, and middle school for the last 16 years. But since 2016, I've introduced a Quidditch club at our school, which mainly acts as an intramural activity for all grades, all genders, and all abilities.
All right, so to start off, we're going to talk about some of the goals that we share regarding youth Quidditch and that we hope to bring into the future. Oh my gosh, I can't see my Zoom anymore. That's fun. Let me pull that up. Sorry. All right. And so we can start off with, we'll start off with Scott.
So when it comes to goals, the idea is that you have an intention behind what you're trying to achieve by bringing Quidditch to your school. And there's a lot of different reasons to integrate Quidditch to your school system. First of all, it's a sport, right? Yes, it comes from the Harry Potter world with the books and the movies, and Quidditch is very much part of that culture and that theme. It's a sport. Get kids playing, get them active. And there's rules just like any other sport, teaching them how to follow the basics and add the advanced skills along the way. It's a way to be active. It boosts your self-esteem, your ability to regulate your emotions and social skills through sports. It's also a great way to integrate curriculum into your PE courses, to your school. We're going to talk more about how this can be cross-curricular as well and cross-seasonal as well. And if there's more that you want to learn outside of integrating school Quidditch today, you can come back tomorrow where we're going to talk more about like other ways to integrate youth workshops and youth Quidditch for you outside of school. And yeah, there's going to be a lot to talk about today. It's going to be a good time.
All right. Sorry, technical difficulties on my end. Won't let me see when I'm sharing the screen. It won't let me share and see Zoom at the same time. Okay, let's go. Christos, do you want to say anything?
Just for the goals, sorry for that slide.
Yep, sure.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think the main thing is just to get people playing, right? Just to get kids to understand that the sport exists. Because some kids have read Harry Potter, some kids haven't read Harry Potter, but the main thing is getting their foot in the door, getting them to see what the sport's all about and trying to create a community. And I think especially at the younger ages, I teach elementary school. So at the ages that I'm teaching, grades 4 to 8, you just want to build a community, especially for kids that might not see themselves as athletes, as kids that might not have played a lot of sports in the past. This might be their first sport. I know for me as a teacher, a lot of the kids that walk in the door have never really played any kind of club sport before at all, or intramurals at all, but they love the idea of Quidditch. It was something new. So I think the main goal for me as a teacher when I have been starting these programs is to get those kids in the door and retaining them, to make it fun for them and not scaring them away with too much, because the game can be very hectic, but slowly introducing it and just creating a community, I think, is the most important thing.
All right, I am fixing this. Next we'll bring up our testimonials. Let me share that. All right, there we go.
Happy.
Derek, do you want to go for this one?
Yeah, sure. So we got a couple testimonials. Actually, can you go back a slide? I think there's one right before this too.
Oops.
I think we had 2 of them. So we had, oh, maybe not.
Yeah, we do. There we go.
Okay, there. So we had a couple students and I believe a couple people that were in Quidditch activities where they have been completing, and we got responses from them. There was a lot of positive feedback. We went through a lot of students really liked the idea that it was a very exciting sport that required teamwork. It wasn't really a sport where if you have one all-star player, they can't really like win you the whole game, because there's a whole bunch of different positions and you need to work together, which is a really nice part. And the students and people playing really saw that, which was awesome. People also really liked the idea that it was different. A lot of people kind of like the idea of playing a different sport that had all these elements from all these other sports. So there was a little bit of dodgeball. There was a little bit of like handball, which people have been playing before, as well as almost kind of footballish style and rugby style where you're passing the balls around as well and trying to work together. And then I think Jonathan's were the next one. So if Jonathan wants to take over for the next set of testimonials, because I believe these are his.
Yes, thank you. So actually, I was able to gather some of these from students over the last couple of years. What was really nice was that last school year, our county held a Comic-Con and our students were able to hold a panel. And so again, not just sport, but allowing children to find themselves in spaces where they can be leaders, where they can practice empathy with one another, where they can practice fundraising and other things. Just clubs like this, I think are really rather important. And that's you know, my dad and teacher stance. From Julia, I think this is really important. She's an 11th grader now, but played when we first started. And I'll read that whole thing to her to you all, because it is rather important to me. She said that Quidditch to me is a safe space. I left the middle school 3 years ago and still go back to play Quidditch because of how inclusive it is. Quidditch is a place where anybody can go and feel welcomed and wanted. I met my best friend through Quidditch, and he and I still talk about the fun that we had. Quidditch gave me my best middle school memories and allowed for me to have a safe place to be myself. And if you remember being 13, I bet you don't want to go back and do it again. It is a hard time to change, going from being a child to being someone who is seen as a responsible teenager, adult. You're given responsibilities and things, but you'll see throughout, you know, at least the club that I'm trying to foster, it builds a sense of community, builds a sense of place for kids that some are very athletic, some have never touched a ball or gone on a field in their lives. And you've, you know, even heard about the recruitment in college. You know, are you recruiting for Harry Potter fans, or are you recruiting athletes? And the answer is yes. I mean, everybody gets to be in this space. And so, you know, kids need something like this, where it's not necessarily that travel team or the school team, but places where they can go and be active, and yeah, they can participate in something that is difficult physically, but then also like we've mentioned before, a little bit quirky, a little bit different. And so that's been my very positive experience with students over the last 4 or 5 years.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to stop share. All right, and then Kyle's taking over the screen sharing. There we go. You'd think after a year of working Zoom for COVID, we would have this figured out, but here we are. All right, so we want to talk a little bit about the benefits of Quidditch in school. And there's a ton of benefits, so we will start. Let's see, who hasn't talked? Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about the benefits of UC?
Sure. Okay, so I think as a group, we were just talking about like all the different ways that students would benefit from Quidditch, and we just heard a lot about what Jonathan says, really good points. And a really important one that we decided was that it was a both grade and gender inclusive sport. A lot of now, especially we're as adults, we're trying to make it a safe space for students of all ages to find themselves and explore and not automatically assume that they fit into a certain gender. And for some students who are struggling with this identity right now, it might be hard for them to choose whether to participate in an all-female sport, all-male sport, and there really aren't a lot of sports that are gender inclusive. And so Quidditch is one of those. And it's really great experience just to get people of all different varying levels of athleticism and experience onto the field at once. Also playing with within multiple grades that are safe age ranges to participate together is also a really good experience. It helps teach helps the older students sort of mentor the younger students, teach them, give them leadership skills, and it helps the younger students learn from the older students as well. And yeah, I guess for the second bullet point, at all athletic levels, Quidditch is a great sport that encompasses a lot of different skills that are applied in different sports that students might more be used to, such as basketball, soccer, even handball. And it's a great sport to let them develop those different skills and see what they might be good at. And and if they found that they struggled in a certain sport before and sort of lost their confidence, it might be cool to let them know that to let them experience Quidditch in a new light and a new sport they might not be familiar with. Sorry. And so I give them confidence saying, hey, there's a lot of people who have never played Quidditch before and everybody is learning. And so you can learn at your own speed. No one's going to come in with natural ability, and it'll give them more self-confidence in that area. And for cross-seasonal, that's a cool thing. That a lot of sports, when you play it, unless you're in travel, the sports are only one season long, where for Quidditch, if that as we know, it goes fall and spring, and people even practice in the winter. And this would be a great way for students to keep building the skills and to build the connections they have with each other, players and coaches, all year round. And if anyone else wants to chime in on this slide, more than welcome to.
Yes, I really appreciate those ideas about engaging all academic levels, and everyone comes in not knowing, right? This is not something that you see routinely on TV, or you play in the yard or in the street, and so it is new to young people. Oftentimes they think I invented it. I'm like, no, I swear I didn't. But what I've seen that's also very nice is that students who've been coming, players who've been coming for a few times, or even maybe they're in 7th grade and they played as a 6th grader, they are quick to want to explain the rules to students who are new. Just this last week, there was a young man who he's in 8th grade, and he's grown a lot as a person. You can read that how you like, but he spotted a boy who was just sitting on the side and watching, who was actually the son of one of the teachers that day. And he brought him over. He called timeout. He brought him over, tried to do a quick rule explanation. But it gives kids, again, this gradual release of authority in their own spaces. And I would like to highlight this picture that's at the top. It's one of my absolute favorite Quidditch moments. We had a field day at school, and you'll see that there's a student in a black t-shirt wheeling and pushing a student in a wheelchair who's playing as a beater. And there's a young woman on the left who her aide from school is walking with her. She's wearing a helmet to help her. She's normally in a power chair. And she decided that she wanted to play not in the power chair. She wanted to do some walking and throwing. And this is the inclusive moment that, my heart leapt for joy. Obviously, it wasn't super competitive in this moment, but people were all very aware and caring to everyone playing in that space. And so, again, the benefits of Quidditch in schools is not just engaging all athletic levels, but engaging all students to share and care for one another.
All right. So we are going to move on to the next one, and we're going to start this slide with a question that was posed from the audience. And the question asks, what rule set are you using for your youth Quidditch programs? I ran a youth program at a summer camp in Pennsylvania in 2019 and found out one of the main challenges was playing a version of the game that was adapted to children, i.e. non-contact, limited contact, easy to understand, and that replicated the IQA USQ rules. Quidditch we play as adults. Is there a formalized rule set that we should be following? And I will let Scott, do you want to start on this one?
You got it. So it's a fair question. It's an appropriate question. A lot of other sports have variations of rules as they start off from their youth and get to high school. Like when I think about this, I think of like track and field. And in the States, one of the clear distinctions are just certain events. Some states don't have javelin introduced in high school. They introduce it in college. Safety reasons, adequate coaching, those are definitely considerations to think about when you're trying to integrate all the different concepts and rules to Quidditch. Can you sufficiently teach and coach the rules that need to be played, and are the players able to execute them in a safe manner? So like these are just some like basic guidelines that you guys can follow. USQ does have version 2 of its youth rule book. If you want more in-depth like knowledge of what our rules are, you're welcome to give that a look later, and we're going to share that resource later. But right now, just these are just some things to keep in mind, like no contact, there's no grappling, there's no tackling. The game time is shorter. I think it's like shorter by a few minutes. Someone else welcome to like clarify what that is. Great. And shorter in the sense that like the snitch does not immediately join the start of the game. They come out later on. And I think for youth, it comes out closer to like the 15-minute mark. And something that we just kind of observe with this age group is that it's different than adults is snitch value is different. You're looking for someone that's a little bit speedier, a little bit more elusive. As you get older, you're looking for more of that grappling kind of like style of snitch play. Not that you can't have both, it's just going to look differently. Again, because of the limitations of the physical contact as well. There's other rule adaptations. There is no universal youth guideline that says you have to play a certain way. Right now, I think it's totally appropriate that you kind of take a look at the rules that are in play and see how you can adapt them to your current group, your current system, and those that are involved.
All right, Christos, do you want to go next?
Awesome. So for me, teaching in Canada on that, just on that note quickly, for the rule adaptations, one thing that I found right away was I want to encourage everyone to pass the ball and get everyone into the game and not just have one person run down the field. Now, in the Quidditch that we play at our age, with contact, it kind of makes it hard to do that because not only do you have beaters, you also have people that can physically tackle the person in the ground. In youth Quidditch, this isn't the case. So what I found in the infancy of the programs I was doing was one kid would get the ball, run it all the way down the court and the field, because I usually play indoors in Canada because it's a lot colder here. They'd run it all the way down. They would score. They wouldn't have to pass at all. And if the other team's beaters were less experienced, there was really no way to defend. So what I did was I introduced a crease. So kind of like a European handball crease where no one can go through. And just a simple change like that actually made it a lot more difficult for one person to score, but made it so if they were passing around, it made it a lot better. So small things like that, kind of figuring out what your community, what your community needs, really helped my program out and made it so everyone is getting involved a lot more. And then snitch wise, I've also done it as well, where instead of having a snitch at all, if you can't have a kid do it, or if it's too dangerous, or if you're playing inside and it's close quarters, I found that a snitch sometimes is like getting blindside hit by someone with whatever they were running and weren't looking, and I didn't want kids to get hurt. So you can do something as simple as throwing a tennis ball on the wall in a space where no other kids are, and if someone catches it before it hits the ground, that's a snitch catch. I've done that before and it seemed to work pretty well too. So there's a couple of ways that you could add other rule adaptations to make it safer and to make it more inclusive to everybody on the court.
And then Amy.
Great. And I just wanted to mention that depending on the goals for getting Quidditch into schools, if the primary focus is just to sort of get it first involved into PE curriculum, so it's a little bit more casual, it's more of a learning base, then you have the option to sort of take the progression with the different positions at your own pace. From running consistent youth Quidditch events, I found that the younger the students are, the more likely it is that they might not even progress into beater play. For kindergarten through second grade, or even second grade through almost third or fourth, a lot of them, if they have seen Quidditch or know about Quidditch, what they identify with most is the quaffle play. And so we could introduce different drills to get them aware of the different positions, such as like the chaser, beater, seeker. But really, when we get the scrimmages going, focusing the most on quaffle play. And as the students get older, giving them the option to incorporate the beater play and then gain them more formalized with it. If you want to actually start a team at the school, which would be another awesome goal, then you'd want to definitely let them explore with the different positions and have the students learn about the different positions so they can play accurately. And like Scott mentioned, there is a rule book. The rule book's in the works, and we also have some other resources that sort of give a summarized version step by step of how to give yourself a crash course on how to adapt the rules for kids playing, and some possible drills you can use to start to play with them.
And then before we get to Jonathan, we had a real quick question for Christos for clarification. The question is, what do you do to make your players pass more when there are no beaters and they won't get tackled? I didn't quite understand what you said there. Could you repeat it again?
Yeah, no problem. So for me, like I said, if the beaters are new, let's say one team has beaters that have played before and other team has beaters that have never played before and they wanted to play the position, you want everyone to be able to play the position they want. But at the same time, if people are learning, naturally, is for beaters in the audience, the position can be quite challenging. So what would happen is if one chaser from the other team would always run down the field and not pass the ball because, well, there's no tackling or beaters, they don't need to pass the ball. It was hard to always convince them to pass the ball if there was no real rule to say, well, why don't I just run down the field? I can just score every time. If you add a sizable crease where the hoops are, so where the 3 hoops are, I can't remember the exact measurements, but it's enough where you absolutely cannot dunk. It's not possible. You can't run through the crease. By adding that crease, defenders can be in where the hoops are, almost like hoop D for younger kids. They can be there. So if one kid's going to try to run it down all the time, it's much easier to be in front of them and block them without having to actually tackle them. So it encourages that kid to say, well, hold on, there's a crease, I can't run through it, and I can't really run around it very fast. The fastest way to get the ball from here to here is not to run it now, it's to pass it over. So it was encouraging those kids to pass the ball more and make sure that everyone was actually getting a touch of the quaffle. And that's the main idea for me. And like I said, I found that that's worked really, really well, especially when I'm playing indoors when the space is a little shorter, where someone might be able to sprint down the entire court in 5-6 seconds if it's really small. Having that crease and the defenders able to be in there has really made it so passing is much more of a viable strategy. So I hope that answers your question. Apologize if I wasn't clear.
All right, and then real quick, we'll have Jonathan go.
Yes. So with our snitch, you know how normally if the snitch is going too long, they got to put a hand behind their back and other things. So we moved from running around to then skipping, to galloping, then to 1 foot sort of thing. And we've had a lot of good beaters keep that snitch out there a very long time. Another rule that I found that was important was a tuck rule. If a student had a player had the quaffle tucked, even though we're doing no contact, initially kids would try to rip the ball away or grab it. So 2 kids grabbing, and they both hit the ground. So our rule is that if the ball is tucked, you cannot touch it, but as soon as they bring it out, that's when you could swipe at it or take it.
Awesome. And just as a resource, immediately for the rules, USQ also has a youth rule book that we're in the process of developing a new one because the rules just changed so much. So we can go to that resource page, which brings us to this next slide. So we need to stop waiting for someone else to take these steps. These things don't happen on their own. Takes time and commitment and lots of love for our sport and community. And I know I speak for myself and most likely everybody in this panel that we absolutely love kids and we love doing this. So that being said, we can go to our next slide as well. And I will send in the chat. We have a link tree that has a whole bunch of resources. And I will share my screen just for a second so I can show this. Let's see. Okay, so on this card, we have everything. We have a whole bunch of NGB, non-governing bodies that have a developed youth program page. There are some teams here and there across other countries, but they don't have a page for that quite yet. So I linked the ones that do have a page. We also have some PE standards you can look at to see for some countries to help align with PE. Enrich Education is used in the UK and they are very in on Quidditch. So that is a good resource. And then we have resources to help celebrate diversity for LGBTQIA+, BAME, which is Black, Asian, and minorities, and then SEND, which is for students with disabilities. And then we also have some, to reference one of the questions, there are safety resources, and this has a link for about 7 different websites with resources for safety. And then the COVID-19 toolkit if you want to start somewhere in the near future. But with that, we also have a few resources for equipment, and then Backyard Quidditch, a video that just kind of shows what's going on, our USQ grant for youth teams, and then the email for the USQ youth team. This is a living document, so things can be added as well. But this is just kind of a go-to for everything to start your team. And then I will stop sharing. And then if we want to share the slideshow again. Yeah, so to answer another question that someone had, how have we gone about acquiring and making equipment? Have you tailored it towards kids or use standard Quidditch equipment? So we'll go with Derek for this one.
So I personally use a bunch of different equipment. I know Christos has also used a different equipment. The one thing for brooms, because that seems to be probably the most often one that people are worried about for injuries. He actually used pool noodles. So they went to the dollar store, bought some pool noodles and cut them in half. So there's really no risk at injury. It's all foam, which is good. You can also use PVC piping, although it's a little bit harder and it can sometimes break. So pool noodles can definitely be good. Basically anything that you can use is perfect. Anything that you can use as a broom works. I think personally, if you can find some pool noodles that are a little bit thinner, not the huge ones, that would probably be your best bet and cheapest bet. Versus for the nets, there are often schools will have standing target nets. I don't know if that's the exact name, but basically they're stands and they're basically standing hoops. They might be a little bit shorter, but that's okay. I've also used hula hoops, and I put a hula hoop on a basketball net. We were only able to use one net for Quidditch, but it's better than none, and we can still do it. A couple other things we've used, you can use dodgeballs, the foam ones, you can use volleyballs as a quaffle. If you deflate it a little bit, there's really any resource you can use if you can think that it will work for the time. There isn't really a set thing that you would do. The hardest thing will probably be Quidditch hoops. I don't know if other people have used anything different for hoops, but if you could make a set as well, or you could purchase, I think they're around, I'm not sure exactly how much. I thought they may have been like $300 for a full set, but I could be wrong on that.
All right, and then Christos.
Yeah, just to add to that. So, Derek, absolutely for the pool noodles, I couldn't advocate for them. They're they're awesome. They're cheap, really easy to use. And the other thing with the pool noodles is that they actually have different colors. So I had 2 colors. I had orange and green, and it was a very easy way for kids to be able to distinguish what team they were on. So it was like, oh, green noodles versus orange noodles, right? As for hoops, for hula hoops, it can be tough. I've played mostly indoor. So if I'm playing indoor, what I've actually done, I've taped them to the wall. So you have 3 at the different locations, and I'll tape them to the wall. You obviously can't go behind the hoops because there's nothing. But if you really wanted to have that 3 hoop system, you can tape them to the wall if you're playing indoors. If you're playing outdoors, it's a bit more challenging. But what I've actually done before for outdoors is we kind of created a bit of a contraption with a chair. Although that was more when I was first starting out, and I don't know how safe that would really be when you're looking at safety, but when I was working at camp, I've done that too. So there's ways that you can innovate it. Just make sure that whatever you're doing, you're following the guidelines of your community for safety. It's obviously really important. I don't want anyone getting in trouble for doing something saying, oh, well, this panelist told me to do this, but just make sure you know the safety guidelines of where you are and make sure that you're doing things that are safe.
Yeah. Amy.
Yeah, really quick. I actually, Lex and I were just talking about this. Scott and I are running the Kid Quid, how to run a youth Quidditch event seminar tomorrow at 2:30, and we actually have a whole session where we go over different means of collecting these kid appropriate materials, such as little balls, little quaffle, little budgers, and some recommendations that we have about brooms as well. So everything that's been said right now has been totally accurate. And if you want a little bit more information, you can tune into that tomorrow.
All right. And then Jonathan.
Yes. So, and I may talk about it on the next one too, but parents have been a big help. Actually, they noticed that my dodgeballs were getting a little worn out, and because they'll come and watch and be so. Some of them will say, I've never watched my kid play a thing, and so I come do that. And if you are in a smaller community, especially, I built my first one out of first hoop out of things that I purchased on my own to see how it's going to work, and then was able to take that to the local.
I think we're losing you a bit. Oh. Jonathan, I think we lost the last part of your answer.
Went ahead and tried to type it. I ask for donations from local hardware stores.
Awesome. All right, and then Scott, real quick.
Yeah, I just want to touch on like brooms and hoops real quick. I'll start with hoops. So I play with Amy on Chicago United. Our first set of hoops were built by my younger brother. My younger brother has no interest in Harry Potter, has no interest in anything like related to that. It's not his wheelhouse. But what is his wheelhouse? Building things from scratch. And how is he motivated? With money. So you pay your younger brother to build stuff for you, give him a project that's going to boost his self-esteem, and then now you got your team of Quidditch hoops. So like thinking about what do you have access to? No, I don't know how to build things, but I have a brother that knows how to build things, right? And then like thinking about brooms real quick, I know pool noodles have been mentioned. You can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and cut PVC pipe. I know it's kind of a little hard to see. Cut it to size. I've found just in general that like the younger the person is, the smaller you want this broom to be. And then as they get older, just get a bigger broom.
All right. And then we are going to move through our next two slides kind of quickly so we get to questions. We got a few. What do we need from our community? Little bit of everything. Funding is a big one. Also volunteering. If you have any interest at all in anything youth Quidditch, please volunteer. We have so many positions open. Find an insider, leverage parents, and we have a few questions involving parents that we will get to during our Q&A. Social media promotion, any ideas you have, throw them out there. At least you have 5 or 6 people here who are very interested in all of that. And then sibling clubs are huge. So if you already are a part of a college team or a community team, think about, reaching out to your local schools or your local park districts and starting those teams. And does anybody in our panel want to add a little bit of anything else before we get to Q&A? Scott. Your hand still raised? Oh, okay, your hand was raised. All right, so we will get to our Q&A. We have our resources. Again, we'll post that in Slack and it's posted in the chat, and we'll post that, we'll post our PowerPoint. And then time for Q&A. So we have a few questions here. First, we'll start off with, So the question says, Quidditch certainly has had one of the most progressive mindsets when it comes to including gender in sports. And as Amy mentioned, that has been a huge value to expose youth to, especially before they've built many preconceptions in that area. How do you tailor and explain the mindset to kids in different age groups? And have you had any difficulties in that field, especially with regards to parents and what they want their kids to know? Derek.
So before I answer the question, I was just going to post the link as well for the presentation, just in case people weren't on the Slack. You should be able to download it as well as view it from there. As regards to the question, the one thing that I really like is being a teacher. When you're using this inside of the school, you can bring up these ideas of gender inclusivity, and you can bring up these ideas within, and it's a really good way to start talking about these issues and talking about these concepts, because I think they're really good to talk about and have these discussions, which are generally kind of hard, I find, to have with your class, but it is very good to have them at a younger age because it wondering about them, especially if you have students in your class that may not go by male or not go by female, or maybe they had different genders change or something like that. It really opens up students' minds and their eyes and kind of to just become aware of this, because some aren't that aware of it. I have not had any issues with any of my students kind of not taking that in. A lot of them have just been like, oh, I didn't think about it that way, or oh, this is kind of nice that everybody's included. As with the parents, I haven't really been too much in contact with parents just because I haven't been a full-time teacher yet. So I haven't had any experience with that. I don't know if anybody else has or if would like to add anything to that.
All right, Amy.
I'm sorry, I don't have much to add on the parents aspect, but in the question they mentioned there are many preconceptions about the separation of gender within sports, and I feel like that's super true. Whenever kids get involved in playing sports at a young age, it's always okay, boys soccer team, girls soccer team, boys play baseball, girls play softball, and I think it's important for when talking with Quidditch, is if that separation is just never made known or present. As soon as you start introducing Quidditch, if you never separate the students by gender, if you have a lot of representation of coaches that are both male and female, and you're giving examples of and showing games where there are representations of male, female, and all and people who are non-gender conforming, and so as if students never see that there is any separation between the different genders within the sport, then that's just going to be how they assume Quidditch is. And hopefully, if they're young enough, they won't come in with that preconception. If they are older and already have it, then just letting them know, hey, this is a all gender inclusive sport, co-ed sport. It might be a little bit different than what you're used to, but this is what the sport entails, and this is what you'll have to get used to, and it'll make everybody better in order to being able to play with people of different identities and skill levels. So representation, getting people involved of all genders in your leadership is important.
Amazing. Scott, did you want to add anything?
Kind of hard to add everything or add anything more to that, but I'm going to attempt to. So I think what everything's been saying is awesome and wonderful. I want to highlight things that were shared last night from Yara's kind of keynote about inclusion and diversity within the sport. I think as a community, we need to emphasize that there is no separation from the sport, from inclusion, from our community. They are one and the same, and they are integrated. And again, starting them young, hey, we are a co-ed sport. It is inclusive. This is what it looks like, and here's what we are about, period.
All right. And then we will move to our next question. I'm reading the chat. We're going to move to our next question. And we have touched a little bit on this, but have you guys ever experienced problems with parents of members of your youth teams? Christos.
So the answer for me, admittedly, with the position we are with Quidditch right now, a lot of it is intramural based. So it's not as much parent involvement, at least from my standpoint, because most of what I've been doing for the past 3 years in Quidditch has been based in elementary schools. But what I can say is for the volunteering I've done at other schools that I don't teach at, the parent support has been overwhelmingly positive. And going back to what was said before, a lot of the parents that come in and said, well, I've never seen my child play a sport at all. And they're just happy that they're involved. And they want to do everything they can to keep them involved. They want to do everything they can to help the sport thrive so that when they grow up into elementary school and they keep going in their grades, because some of these students are only in grade 4 or 5, when they're in grade 6, 7, 8, they want these programs to continue because they're seeing their kids involved in something they've never been involved in at all. And I have not once ever had any negative feedback from any parents, but I will preface that, to be fair, by saying that I haven't talked to a plethora of parents. I've maybe talked to 3 or 4 parents from kids that I've helped outside of the school I'm at. But the school I'm at, we were very close to doing actual scrimmages before COVID happened, but then, well, COVID happened. So I don't imagine that a lot of parents would go in and say a lot of negative things in that regard. They come in, they see the sport played, they see what it's about, and they're all for it from my experience.
All right. And then Scott, and then after that we'll go to Derek real quick. Scott.
My experience has been very similar to Christos. I've done a lot of workshops, haven't had too much engagement with parents, but again, it's been very positive. The idea that this is a thing and you can do this and it can be part of your day-to-day affairs has been really awesome for parents and kids to see. And just, one thing that has been a little bit different to emphasize, just kind of like the state of the world, right? COVID times, increase in technology use, extra reliance on technology use, and just like a generational thing with Twitch and Discord. Yes, it's definitely kept us all together and connected during a time when it's kind of hard to be connected physically. Once we are able to be more connected physically, finding an outlet to get young people back out there, Quidditch is definitely going to want to be involved in that conversation of getting folks physically active more consistently again. And this is a great way to get kids to do that.
All right. And Derek.
So the closest thing I have with the parents is I was working with a teacher, and basically the comment the teacher did when I was running the Quidditch program is that they had some students in the class that were normally not seen as the athletic type of student. So they just normally weren't the one that was participating or wanting to play these athletic sports. And they were shocked at how involved and how excited they were about the sport. And bringing that to parents that may be of students that were kind of bookworms and maybe don't like playing sports that much. I don't see them having an issue with it. They're just going to be happy to see their kid out having fun and playing with friends in an awesome Quidditch community that we have.
Nice. Amy, 20 seconds. We have our 1-minute warning.
I would just say, coming from the angle, if parents are worried about the different levels of playing ability and the mixing of genders within the sport, just highlighting the fact that there is no contact, and listing out the different levels of contact as they get older, just putting parents at ease for safety wise and the rules about concussions and tackling and stuff, no tackling.
Yeah. All right. So we have one more question, but I think it would be best answered on Slack. The question is, how have you faced negativity regarding people's preconceptions about Quidditch, specifically in relation to youth Quidditch? I think that's an awesome question that needs to be talked about. So we will answer that on Slack. But for now, we're going to wrap it up. We will repost all the resources on Slack, so our youth Quidditch resources and this PowerPoint. And we will go on for there. I think youth is a very important conversation. It needs to grow because that's how we funnel in to bigger Quidditch. Yeah, thank you guys for coming. I hope we have been respectful of your time, and I hope everybody has a great rest of QuidCon. Bye, guys.